Hey everybody, this is Maxine Taylor with my Trumpology report for June 2020. And I've got some information that might be interesting to you. I think by now we know the dynamic, we know the MO, and it's just a question of how it's going to manifest. So let's take a look at Trump's chart for June 2020, just for the sun and the eclipses. We have two eclipses this month. The first one is June 5th. It's a full moon lunar eclipse in 15 Sagittarius 34. And if you look right down here at the bottom of Trump's chart, you will see that that eclipse sits right smack dab on his south node and moon. Now, the south node is traditionally the area of the chart that you have mastered in past lives. It's very, very easy for you, and it's easy to slip into it instinctively. And if you spend too much time with the south node, it's going to drain you because it's the north node that you want to pull in this particular lifetime. And using both the north node and the south node, you then have a lovely balance that you can use. Okay, so the eclipse sits on his south node, and let's just interpret it literally. There can be losses in real estate, losses in family, recognition, losses with family. His emotional security is his needs for that his emotional security be filled. That's what's triggered. But since the south node is involved here, it doesn't appear as if it's delivering. And the south node delivers what it always delivers, same old, same old. So that's nothing unusual. However, the moon is where we look for our emotional security, and the moon is changeable. So there can be changes in where he lives, how he lives, and just his whole emotional foundation is not a steady, secure one. Okay. Now, that eclipse, that very same eclipse, is in opposition to his 10th house, which is his public image and his career and leadership. And so, while you might say, well, if the south node is triggered, then so is the north node. And that's true, but it's in opposition. You want the north node triggered pulling in the south. The south is the one that's going to drain you. The north will give you success. So the eclipse on June 5th is in opposition to his Uranus, his north node, and because they are conjunct the sun is pulled in. The sun is the giver of life. It's our energy. And so this particular eclipse drains his energy because his foundation is for security is weak, south node and moon, looking for mommy, looking for emotional security, and it's not forthcoming. And then in opposition, it can push away that very dynamic 10th house, which with Uranus is unpredictable, the north node successful, and the sun leadership. So that's the first eclipse. Oh boy. Now it is trine his Pluto, and I didn't include that here because Pluto's in his 12th house, and so this is behind the scenes power. And it's a trine aspect, which is quite lovely. All right, moving ahead then to the next eclipse, which is the new moon, and it is a solar eclipse. This particular eclipse sits in his 11th house, and that's friends, and it's Congress, and it's group activities, and it squares Neptune. I haven't put Neptune in here because the conjunctions are the strongest aspects, and just having the sun sitting in that 11th house, just having the new moon, the solar eclipse sitting there awakens it. And it sits on his Mercury, which is communication with friends, communication with Congress, which is a very positive thing. But the square to Neptune, which rules the 8th house of other people's money, indicates that there is hidden money coming to him. And Neptune is just a few degrees, well, it's in his 2nd house. And so Neptune is obfuscation. And so there can be confusion with his money, his income, etc. But the sun on Mercury does indicate communication with friends. And so the sun starts off in his 10th house of career, very positive, very leadership oriented. And on the 20th, it moves into his 11th house of friends and group activities. So this year, his solar return is on the 13th. His birthday is the 14th, but the solar return is on his 13th. So from the 7th till the 13th, the sun is sitting in his 10th house. And this will help his public image and his career. So he's got a mixed bag, right? 4th house, drainage, not doing well, real estate, etc. 10th house, he is king, at least in his own mind. And he feels very much empowered. I don't know if he's having any rallies in June, but if I were setting his social calendar, his political calendar, his rally calendar, I'd say do it all. Well, I would start the first part of the month, and by his birthday, end it on a high note. And then as it moves into the 11th house of friends, that can bring blessings too, because the sun, remember, is the giver of life. Okay, now, this is very interesting. Mars, the planet of action, energy, war, open enemies, partnerships, whether personal or business. It's in his 7th house. And this can be his wife. It can be the people he deals with. It deals with the 7th house is the public. It's other people. And it does show that he's throwing himself into the public eye. Well, he does that all the time, you might say. Yeah, well, it's stronger now. On the 17th, it moves into his 8th house of secrets and other people's money. This is a time when his anger will be quite strong, and it's stronger for being stuffed. The 8th house deals with other people's money. It deals with symbolic death and rebirth. And it can bring mutual finances. It can help him financially at that point. Now, Venus is in his 10th house all month. Venus is the lesser benefic. This enhances his public image, puts him in the limelight. Venus naturally will bring happiness and success and publicity. And a very positive career image. However, it's retrograde until the 25th, when it goes direct and enters the shadow of the retrograde till July 28th. So all of the fame and positive attitude that Venus would bring, recognition, money, it doesn't deliver because it's retrograde. However, after the 25th, it will deliver. Now, Mercury, communication, correspondence, transportation, is also going to go retrograde on the 18th, and it's sitting on his natal Mercury. So there is lots of communication with Congress, with friends, with cronies, and as we might expect during these very troubled times when we are essentially in a very, very violent, unpredictable place. And he's feeling good. He's feeling real good about his public image. So I'm just reporting it, all right? Now let's look at the United States chart, because that naturally plays into the whole picture. Give me just 1 second here I've got the actual chart and I'm hooking it up where I can see it. Okay, well, this is very, very, very interesting. And I have another video, by the way, that I'm going to be doing in either today or tomorrow that will explain a great deal about what we're going through and why we're going through it. But for now, let's just take a little look at the United States chart. Okay. Just the sun and eclipses to start with. The sun, center of our life, center of energy, is sitting in the United States first house. That is the political attitude and the attitude and mood of the people. It also deals with public health. And in the first house, the sun, the giver of life, is acting in a way that might appear contradictory to the health situation in the country. And that situation is a confused one. Nobody knows who to believe. People are isolated, they're afraid. And now restaurants are open, people are stepping out. And so the sun in the first house shows that the people are taking things into their own hands. Traditionally, the sun in the first house says, I'm doing what I want, when I want, how I want, because I want. I'd say that's what we're going through. And on the 10th of June, the sun sits on Mars. Now, Mars is the planet of war. It's passion, it's energy, it's wherever Mars is what you throw yourself into because it's what is number one to you. So the populace, the attitude of the people is, I'm doing it my way, I'm out for number one. And so with the demonstrations, the rioting, the looting, and the influence from outside the country, the incendiary influence, that would be the sun on Mars. And so it's going to continue. It's not going to end overnight. And it will be in our first house till the 21st. Now, on the 21st, the sun enters our second house of money, finances, banks, commerce, and trade. And this is an eclipse that is very important. I'm getting ahead of myself now because it's a new life eclipse. Let me put that on pause and let you enjoy what I just said and talk about the sun's movement. Then we'll talk about eclipses. And then we'll go into Venus, Mars, and Mercury. Okay, so the sun is in the first house, and it's a very me position. People are demonstrating. It started out very civilly, non-violently, and then from within and without came violence, looting, death started the whole thing. And it was still a very nonviolent demonstration around the country. And as the country was infiltrated, and I'm just telling you what I'm reading, and from good sources. And as the demonstration got angrier, then we had the sun saying, I'm doing my thing my way. And that ties in also with looting, if the person wants to do that. Remember, there are millions of people involved. Okay, on the 21st, the sun moves into the second house. And by the 23rd, it lights up Venus and Jupiter, the two benefics. This can provide improvement in our finances, in our earnings, in our savings, in commerce and trade. So this is a very positive indicator. Now, we've got a couple of eclipses that I want to talk about. On the full moon, on the 5th, we have a full moon in the 7th house of the United States chart. And 15 Sagittarius 34. By the way, I'm using the 7 Gemini 48 ascendant for the United States chart, which puts natal Uranus right on the ascendant in 8 Gemini 53. And we started our country out of rebellion. And every time that Uranus is hit, we rebel in some way, shape, manner, or form. Okay, and the sun, just a week ago when all of this began, was on Uranus. And normally I would say that's a great opportunity to express yourself, but because of the situation that triggered the demonstrations, the self-expression became very unpredictable, rebellious, and radical. Uranus. Okay, so the lunar eclipse on Friday is in 15 Sag 34. It is in opposition to Mars. The 7th house deals with war, lawsuits, open enemies. So there's fighting. Surprise, it'll probably continue for a while. And for those of you who study astrology, if you will look ahead in 2021 to March and April, you'll see that Mars is going to be on the ascendant and Uranus. Some of you are saying, well, what does that mean? Mars is fighting, Mars is war, Uranus is explosive. Mars is in the 1st house natally. Mars on Mars, big fighting. Big me first. Okay, so back to the 7th house with a lunar eclipse. Lawyers, politics, and the lower courts. So these areas that I've just described, that's what this particular eclipse is going to emphasize. And on the full moon, things come to a head. And so with the demonstrations, we can expect things to come to a head. Yep. In opposition to Mars. That can quell it, but remember, we feel the effects of an eclipse most strongly 3 to 4 months after it occurs. So that's, let's see, June, July, August, September, and October. For that eclipse and this second eclipse, which is the solar eclipse on the new moon. So full moon things come to a head. In other words, the demonstrations, the rioting, the looting will come to a head. And that's just what it says. Now, The solar eclipse sits on Venus and Jupiter, and it pulls the sun in because Jupiter is conjunct the sun. The Venus is 2 Cancer, Jupiter is 5 Cancer, the sun is 12 Cancer. Now this eclipse is 0 Cancer, 21. So while it doesn't sit directly on the sun, it pulls it in. And when we have an eclipse on our sun, it's a new life eclipse. This is the area of money. And so on the 21st, we have the new moon. This is going to enhance our financial situation. Yay. Our earnings. I think we'll see the stock exchange become active. I would certainly hope it would improve. Commerce and trade, very, very active. And simply more income, more spending, which is why people wanted to go back to work and have restaurants open, etc. On the 23rd, the sun sits on Venus, more money spent and earned, and on Jupiter, even more money spent and earned. It deals with our savings. And so I feel that this is a mini new life eclipse for the country, which is terrific. Some of you are saying, well, how much money are we going to get? I have no idea, but I'm just glad to see it. Okay, that's this page. Let's look over here. Mars, right now, is in the 11th house of Congress and congressmen and legislation and city councils, county councils. Friends, Mars, wherever it is, that's what we throw ourselves into, what we fight with and fight for. So Congress can easily be at odds with one another. By the way, the 11th house in a country's chart is the treasury. States have been, well, one day I remember Trump told the states to take care of their own resources. And then the next day he said he got upset with them because they were not doing what he would have liked. I think that this deals with city and state government as well. And so there's going to be a continued problem here. Like I said, next year in March and April, Mars will be on the ascendant of the United States chart. However, right now, Venus, blessings, love, happiness, is retrograde, so it's not really delivering. But it is going to, it's backed up into the 12th house. It'll be backed up there. And then it's going to move into the first house. Now, it's going to sit on Uranus, the 12th and the 13th. Usually, in a person's chart, if you have Venus on Uranus, or even for a longer period of time, Uranus on Venus, it's a wild and crazy time for fun and games. Those kind of games. You'll try anything. And so while it is retrograde right now, as it returns, which it will, crossing the ascendant, which it will in July, the country, the tone of the country can improve. And I do feel that while we're still dealing with a virus, people are happier to be out, to socialize. So that is helping the attitude of the people. The problem, I think, is still a mixed bag because we were told to shelter in place and we were supposed to stay away from people. This leads to depression, unhappiness of all types, isolation. And that sets the stage once we are let free, so to speak, for explosion and overdoing a good thing. And that's Venus doing it 12th and 13th of June. Watch it. Now, Mercury is also retro in the second house. It'll go retrograde on the 18th. On the 2nd, it sits on Jupiter. Now, remember, later on, Jupiter is hit with the sun on the 26th, with the eclipse on the 21st. And so Jupiter is traditionally in the second house, abundance of money. How much? I don't know. It varies from person to person. But there is a week in June from June 18th, when Venus goes direct, when Mercury goes retrograde, I'm getting ahead of myself. June 18th, Mercury goes retrograde. Venus is retrograde at that time. And on the 25th, Venus goes direct. So for 1 week, we've got that tag team going on. And while you might say, well, Venus is no benefic because it's, look what's going on. But Venus, it adds enough protection so that it's not worse. Unfortunately, Venus is retrograde, so it can't deliver completely. And I'm not saying that what we are going through in this country is easy or good. It is not. It is so upsetting to so many people when we have internal war with each other. And I've been so happy to see people arm in arm, police arm in arm with demonstrators. It makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful because the truth is we are one. And what happens to one of us affects all of us. And for many of us, our hearts go out to everybody involved, the craziness involved. And, you know, the pandemic instructions were, if you can, stay home. I think with these rebellions, with the looting and rioting, if you can, stay home. So we've got lots going on here. I think I've covered everything in the United States chart. And as long as we have planets right around this, the ascendant and this first house, if they're in the first house, we, the people, are going to step forward in one form or another. And after the situation with the death situation that brought to light so many other deaths, people are upset, people are angry. I get it, I am too. And as far as I'm concerned, we are one. We are one nation under God, indivisible. And I embrace everybody. And while I'm sitting in my house in Atlanta, I am peacefully marching with the demonstrators. I'm with you. And to light workers, starseeds, walk-ins, healers, it is time right now to step forward and do what we came here to do, which was share the light. Because the light can overpower the darkness. Love is the universal antidote. So, This is June in the United States. Stay tuned. I'll be putting out other videos, one in particular, which explains in a bigger way what's going on, and hopefully it will lift you up and inspire you. So, dear friends, I thank all of you for the loving posts on my YouTube channel, for all of the beautiful things that you have said, and my blessing for all of us, wherever we are in the world, is that the stars shine brightly on all of us. Peace out.